Probably that's very confidential.
Yeah, right. And I could have gotten away with that. There's
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's just about 7:30. The public has been duly informed of this meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by posting at least 48 hours in advance a notice on the bulletin boards in Stevenson and Churchill schools, a notice to the township clerk, and a notice to the Herald, News, and the Progress. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you want us to carry some? Well,
Once again, good evening. And before we begin tonight's meeting, the Board of Education would like to take a moment to recognize 9 Fairfield student athletes that have accomplished the extremely difficult task of qualifying for the 2024 NJ Kids Scholastic State Championships. Throughout the year, these wrestlers work tirelessly towards perfecting their craft. Their hard work and dedication is a testament of their commitment to continued success both here in Fairfield and at West Essex. In addition to qualifying for the 2024 state championships, each of these individuals have also won multiple matches throughout the year, multiple individual tournaments on their journey to the state championship. There are only 27 wrestlers allowed to qualify in each weight bracket, what puts into perspective what a challenging task this is. So without further ado, let's welcome our wrestlers. At 45 pounds, Marco Velarde. At 55 pounds, Dante Magno. At 55 pounds, Christian Garces. Congratulations, buddy. At 65 pounds, Giancarlo Minaya. At 70 pounds, Jackson Peruso. Congratulations, buddy. At 75 pounds, Rocco Albano. At 75 pounds, Dominic Velarde. At 100 pounds, Joseph Dentato. At 100 pounds, Blake Baraka. And if we can now have all the wrestlers up front for a photo. Once again, how about a big round of applause for all of our wrestlers? All right, let's take the photo again. Everyone come up. Giancarlo Minaya. One more round of applause. We're going to take a 1-minute intermission to give our wrestlers and their parents an opportunity to leave and forego the rest of the board meeting. So thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. We're extremely proud of the boys. Keep working hard and keep making us proud. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our BA, Ms. Moreno.
Sorry for my back. I appreciate all of you coming out from your regular schedule to hear the presentation tonight, which is the adoption of the 24-25 budget presentation. In the audience, we also have our admin in alphabetical order, Megan Cafone, Director of Special Services. New to the technology is William Harvey, our admin. We have John Persino, Buildings and Grounds Supervisor, with us this evening, as well as our two principals, Ray Santana and Dr. Michael Tribuco. And I don't believe that our board needs any introduction, but out of respect for them, I'm recognizing Anthony DePasquale, our board president. To the right is Angela Altai, the vice president. To Anthony's left is Andrea Giandoli. To her left is Melinda Street, and Joe Feedy is our board member as well, and resident accountant. Okay, so you want to start? Okay, so tonight, the presentation is about 21 pages, and I'm not going to read every single page, but I am going to highlight certain things. So the mission statement: the community of Fairfield Public Schools is committed to providing an environment which cultivates individual abilities, respects differences, and nurtures responsibilities and cooperation. Our overall budget goal is to provide the best possible educational program for the children of the Fairfield Public School District while exercising the utmost diligence in the expenditure of funds. Next one. Our budget starts with our election calendar. And our election calendar triggers some of the dates that you see highlighted here. Our budget really starts now for next year, and we are constantly refining it. But January, February, we meet with the administrative staff to look at if there's any retirees, terminations, if there's a need for new employees. We review contractual benefits, discuss principals, administration, budget requests for anticipated enrollment. Normally in February, which is around the last Tuesday in February, the governor's address takes place, which triggers the state aid to come out 2 days later. On March 14, 2024, we had our board adopt the tentative budget, which was submitted to the county office, which was approved subsequently about 2 weeks later. And tonight is the public hearing, and after tonight's hearing, we adopt our final budget for the 24-25 school year. Next, thank you. So our budget provisions, I'm not gonna read all of them, but I think the first two maintain all current academic programs and extracurricular, and we sustain small class size, and I'm gonna jump down to providing funding for our out-of-district transportation and tuition, as well as our sixth grade textbooks, big ideas to align with the West Essex School District, and address facility improvements, Churchill roof replacement, and reallocation of the server. Both of these are in our resolution tonight for award of both facility upgrades. And the last one is attract substitutes for increasing their compensation. Our 24-25 budget drivers is no different than any other school district. So you have your labor costs, you have your health benefit costs, increasing health insurance premiums. They're never going down, they always go up. We have decreasing employee contributions, but the board increases to the healthcare provision. We have special education, which is our instructional aids to meet the needs of the IEP requirements. We have out-of-district placements, which is tuition with mandated programs and transportation and they're always aligned. They are married to each other. Special ed out-of-district as well as transportation is married. Our staffing and our health benefits are married. Our operation and maintenance is aligned expenses. Our Board of Education office is moving back to Stevenson this year, effective July 1. And our technology has become dependent, schools have become dependent on expensive technology, and this includes wireless infrastructure to support standardized testing, digital textbooks, computers, printers, servers, and network switches. Okay, this slide, which is really slide 6, I'm not going to read all of them, but we are in alignment with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, and there are 9 content standards, as you can see on slide 6. William. We also have supplemental programs, which I'm not going to read, but that's on page 7, starting with preschool and ending with our guidance counselors. Okay, the district efficiencies. We try very, very hard to save money. And by belonging to some of these programs, the Bergen County Municipal Employee Benefit is a pool of school districts, usually about 100 of them, that we pool our resources to get competitive rates for our employee health benefits as well as dental, prescription, and vision. We order all our supplies through EdData, mostly all the teaching supplies, and we belong to Hunterdon and Educational Service in Union County cooperatives, where sometimes they have significant reductions for like technology needs or to purchase large-scale equipment, and that's how we save money. The state requires us to be in the federal E-rate program, which is for technology as well, and when we are evaluated through CUSAC, they expect this as a requirement for CUSAC. We belong to New Jersey ACES, which is an energy consortium, and this saves us money in gas and electric, and it was bid last year, so we're reaping the benefit this year. We belong to New Jersey SIG, which is New Jersey School Insurance Group, and again, we're about 100 school districts that they oversee, and they are on the lookout for certain things like fraud. They make sure that our buildings are safe. They come and evaluate certain things for us on a yearly basis. We shared services with the town. They maintain our fields, salting of parking lots. We purchase our fuel, our gas from them. They use our facilities for summer and recreational programs. And we benefit by the Class 3 retired police officers in both schools, which is a shared service agreement. We're starting our second of the third year, effective July 1. And we provide transportation through the Sussex Regional Transportation, which they bid out our transportation for us, as well as field trips. On slide 9, this is our current enrollment, the 23-24, and then you'll see the last column is projected, the second to the last column is projected the number of sections in each of the class and the enrollment for those classes, okay? It's estimated because during the summertime, you have children and families moving in, some moving out. So it's an estimated number. Okay, our revenue. On slide number 10, you have our local tax levy, which is $14,384,049, and our state aid of $1,031,509. These two are probably the highest revenue sources that any school district has, followed by legal reserves of appropriation fund balance. We also have a capital reserve account that you'll see in another slide that we're withdrawing capital reserve at $1.2 million, but it's offset by the same $1.2 million in the expenditure area. We have tuition income, rent and royalties, and unrestricted miscellaneous revenue. So the total budget is $17,169,140. Slide number 11 is a comparative of our revenues, where we were in the 23-24 and where we are in 24-25. And you'll see that the increase in the tax levy is up $325,000. And that's due mainly because of 2%, which equals $281,580. Plus, we got an allowable adjustment in health benefits and an allowable adjustment in enrollment. Our state aid increased by $78,000. We do not budget for extraordinary aid, and that is because Megan submits the application usually in late May, and we never find out those results until August or September. And of course, we appropriate it into next year's budget, but we won't have the dollar amount. We have, again, capital reserve withdrawal of $1,201,000, our tuition income of $60,000, which mirrors the same slide that I had prior, which a total budget of $17,169,000, up $1,059,125. But you'll see that the biggest increases are in the capital withdrawal, the $982,560, because last year we only used $218,000. And then with the increase in the tax levy plus the state aid, that's what makes the $1,059,000. Okay. On page 12 and 13, I always think it's informational purposes that people sometimes really don't understand what makes up the budget categories. So revenue is really basically where the district receives its taxes and state aid from. But your appropriations are money that is planned and they're in certain categories. I always told my administrative staff that there's 19 cost centers. But when you look at the budget, I've reduced them to consolidate them based on the newspaper. So when you look at general education, you have teacher salaries, the supplies, textbooks, instructional technology, home instruction, substitute aids, lunch aids, purchase services. That's under general education. Under special ed, it's all teachers that are special ed teachers, their supplies, and paraprofessionals. Under other instructions, you have school-based, which is your basic skills and your bilingual. Co-curriculars, your after-school programs and your clubs. On page 13, it's a continuation of those categories. So your tuition is the cost of students that we send out of district for private schools that are instructional day. Our instructional support is very important as well. This is your health services, your speech, your OT and related services, your extraordinary services, which really are your one-to-one aides, your guidance counselors, your child study team, your media service, technology, and staffing. Administration is 3 parts. We have school administration, general administration, and central office. But it combines, when you see it, it's support services, your legal, your architectural, your auditor, your communication costs, advertising. If we had a referendum, that's where we would put that expense, Board of Education dues, supplies, and your financial software. So it's a composite of all those 3 areas. Your operation and maintenance and plant facilities is your maintenance salaries for custodial, police, security, your utilities, your rental expense. Now, I told you that we're moving back to Stevenson, so we're not going to have that. Cleaning and maintenance of facilities, and property insurance, and gas and electric. Transportation is to and from mandated public special ed transportation and aid in lieu. Employee benefits it covers your medical, your dental, your vision, your workers' comp premiums, your employer taxes, which is your Social Security, your unemployment, your PERS, and your pension liability payments, which we pay every April 1st, and as well as your tuition reimbursement. Equipment and capital outlay is any purchases over $2,000, but it's all where your construction costs are budgeted, your lease payment, engineering and architectural fees, in addition to the other administrative architectural fees. So William, okay, you're on it, thank you. So when you look at general education instruction and special ed, those two numbers total $6,313,562. It's 36.77% of the overall budget. Your employee benefits are $3,026,406. Your support services are $2,067,706. Operation and maintenance is $1,457,776. Administrative support is $1,309,316. You have transportation at $876,000. Your capital outlay at $1,369,978. Your out-of-district tuition, these are private placements, is $716,856. And by the way, since I was hired here, I started in July of 2022, 22, 23, 23, 24. At that time, we only had one out-of-district placement. Now we're up to 4. So that number has increased substantially. Our food service is $31,000 for a grand total of, again, $17,169,410. These are the comparative of expenses. So you'll see increases and decreases. And again, the biggest increase is your capital outlay section of the budget and your out-of-district costs, as well as food service, for a total of $1,059,125. I always like the following slide because even though money is very important to me, when I think of 17 million, I think it's a huge dollar amount. I wish I had that in my bank account. But when I look at the cost of the salaries plus the benefits, it's $12,349,216, which is astronomical to me, which it's really 72% of our budget. And even though $4 million is left, $4.8 million is left, it's not a lot of room to have everything that you want in one budget. I just want to bring that to your attention. On this slide, which is slide 17, I'm not sure I had this slide last year, but I am very grateful that this year we went out to bid for the Churchill roof. I think, John, you're just as grateful as I am. So Arco Construction won the bid. And when we were putting together the capital outlay section, initially through the architect and just costs escalating, we were told that that roofing project was going to come in probably about $1,025,000. And that's really what I budgeted in the state budget. But I broke it down for you so that you could see this. So tonight we're approving Arco Construction. There's a contingency of $113,000 because they cannot exceed 20% of the base bid, okay? The other remediation work is $343,520. We know that there's problems in Churchill with the roof project. I don't want to say the word out loud, but that's what we have to be very careful, and that's why it's a built-in contingency for that. Our server is $164,000, which goes back to a year ago for the quote. We had to, and I attribute William for helping with this, when we had a vendor come in and we were looking at the server relocation, there was other needs that we had to add to the base bid, which we did, and that's why that came in a little bit higher on the resolution. And then we have professional fees of $70,000. This is for the boiler replacement, environmental issues associated with the boiler, and $7,000 for reimbursable expenses. We have our mobile lease agreement, which is $47,623, and this is going into the third year of this lease agreement. Our debt service allocation, which is $11,855, and legal costs associated with the array of things in that, for a total cost of $1,369,978. Now, what I want to share with you is this. Even though we're withdrawing $1,201,000, if we don't use all of it, it stays in that account. I'm not allowed to use that money for anything else. That money at the end of the 24-25 school year goes back into, even if it's $1, it goes back into the capital reserve account where it originated from. Are you okay with that? No, you're shaking your head, so that's why I wanted it. Okay. Okay. And our facilities are a priority to us. And every year, I already know, and that's on page 18, that we're planning already for the Churchill boiler replacement project as well as Stevenson School server relocation. So, and there's probably going to be a few others that we have to stick in there for next year, but right now, those are the two priorities. Okay, so everyone asks about Fund 20. That seems to be a question that comes up, and I thought I'd do a slide on that. Ray Santana writes for the entitlement grants, Title I, II, and IV. And every year, it's based on a number, an allocation number. We never know what that is. This is the same amount that we had this year. So right now, we're budgeting the same allocation. The IDA, Megan writes that grant. And we're hoping that we get more this year than we have in the past. And that offsets a lot of our related services for our children that have IEPs. We have the student activities that really both principals oversee. That number was taken from the January 31st, their statements, their bank statements. And we have 2 scholarship accounts. And forgive me, but Dr. Sicatelli, what are the scholarship names?
We have the Mecca one, and we also have the Mark Ibrahim one.
Okay, so that is now governed under Fund 20. And when we have to make a check to write it normally in June, I think for a child, a deserving child that's already been established, I think from 6th grade, that's where that money comes from. Okay, so this is the last slide. There's actually 2 slides, but one is a duplicate of another, just expressed differently. So this is the detail of the tax impact for the 24-25 school year. So if you look at the last line, for a house assessed, and I don't do this, I have to really give special thanks to John McCluskey, because John is the man, the financial man working in the borough, and if he's back there right now, he's probably listening to this, so I'm sending him hugs and kisses. So a house assessed at a cost of an average home assessed at $539,000 will have an increase of $235 per year, $19.61 per month. Page 21 is basically the same thing. It's a little variation of page 20, but I thought it was important to show. Anyone have any questions? Okay.
This includes the referendum we passed last year? Which years?
I'm sorry, can you just come up and state your name and address, please, for the record?
Steve Piccinini, Phillip Drive. I just wondering, what year does this include the referendum that we voted on last year?
So it includes the referendum in the year before, the 23-24. It's always split. For the A4F, that's how they do it. They split half one year and half another. So the combination of both of them, so you already paid a portion of that ballot question in 23, and the rest of it will be paid in 24.
Okay.
So yes, it is inclusive, but it's just split over 2 years.
Anyone else have any questions in regards to the budget? Sure,
Do I need to say my name?
please.
Nicole Sudol. I see the boiler was up there. Did we apply for the ROD grant, the level
Yes,
1?
52,000
And
we
we did
received.
get 52,000.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Come up, Tracy, and just state your name and address for the record.
Tracy Ripa, 5 Scott Drive. So the 52,000 that we received from the ROD grant was for the boiler?
No, it's for the roof project.
For the
Did
roof?
I thought you said-
She's asking about the boiler, that's why I just want
No,
clarity.
right now, we haven't applied for anything because nothing is out for next year for the boiler.
Okay. So
Okay,
we didn't
so-
apply for it, the 23-24 year, we didn't apply for the ROD grant so that we could get the money.
The
And
23-24 year, we applied for a ROD grant that gave us, we were awarded $52,000 to be applied to the roof project.
okay,
Normally, they have ROD grant applications probably September of October of next year,
okay,
which they will come out and they put them by priority form. The one thing I meant to say right now is that we are also looking into, for the boiler, an energy saving program through PSE&G. So that slide, William, can you go back to the slide with the capital? Slide 17. So the architectural fees for $70,000 for the boiler replacement, we have not spent anything yet. It's on hold. Because right now we're exploring, the board's exploring the options with PSE&G. And John Persino is involved in it. We just submitted all the paperwork for them to look at.
okay,
And if they can do it, then maybe the board is going to make that decision. But right now, that's where we are.
So I appreciate that. I just know if we knew the boiler was coming due in 23, 24, the rod grant, level 1 rod grant for boilers was out there for us to apply for. So we had until September, as you mentioned, to apply for that. And if we didn't apply for it, now we have to wait until, I understand the PSE&G thing, but if that doesn't come to fruition, we'd have to wait until till this coming September
Right.
in order to apply, if it's even on the docket for.
If it's on the docket.
on the
But at the
docket.
time that we applied, our priority was the roof project, and we were not really considering the boiler replacement at that time. That came about when John was giving us information that we went to the architect, and we said, you know, it's reaching end of life. It's what, 40 years old?
Wow.
So if we had known that at that time, that we were considering that project, we would have applied
would
for it,
apply
but
for
we
it.
didn't know at that time.
We didn't know before September to
No,
apply for it.
no.
Okay, I appreciate it. I don't know how it really works, so that's why I'm asking questions.
Thank you. It's a great question. Anyone else have any questions in regards to the budget?
Justin Hubler for Linda, please. My question is, I would like to know how the transportation budget keeps getting cut year after year. This is all fine and good.
Excuse me, we'll address, if it's particularly about transportation, we'll address that after any other budgetary questions.
I understand that, but on the thing, it says transportation went down by, what, 30, 40, 50 grand?
Transportation went down?
It was cut down, yeah.
Yes.
I have a picture of the
So-
screenshot.
So I will, you don't have to do a screenshot.
Yeah, can you
I-
elaborate, Kathleen?
Yes,
for
I
him?
am. I'm about to. Just give me a minute. Yes. So the reason why the transportation budget was reduced is because when I mentioned earlier, when I started here, we started with 1 out-of-district placement, gradually the second, now we're up to 4. I had to shift money from the transportation budget to cover the out-of-district placement, as well as shifting from one line in transportation to another line for the out-of-district special ed transportation.
I mean,
That doesn't make you happy, but that's my answer.
well, listen, I'm not saying that I don't understand that. I do understand that. But speaking from somebody that grew up in this town, was taken care of by the people in this town, I've been in this town for 35 years. And all these kids now, all this is all fine and good, the new roof, all that stuff, that's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, what is it for if you can't get the kids to school?
No, and we share with your concerns, but the Board of Education unanimously feels like we are going to put education over transportation 100% of the time, and unfortunately, that's where we are right now.
Okay, and when we get to the other part, I'll come back up and.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions in regards to the budget presentation? Please come up, state your name.
Hi, Tyler Masterson, 21 Henrietta Drive. Just a question was the backdrop in your presentation, the baseball backdrop?
No, it's not.
So I saw that you had mentioned that the town maintains like the grounds and the fields and stuff like that. And I see on the agenda about $26K allocated for like a softball backdrop and $13K for a tractor. So I'm wondering, have we considered maybe approaching the town to
Well,
kind of split those costs?
John, you want to ask?
Since recreation uses and maintains the land?
So the tractor is actually a ride-on mower. That's just to cut the grass, it's not for the field.
But doesn't the town cut the grass?
The town cuts the back of the school, the fields and stuff like that. We cut the front of the schools.
Okay.
The town doesn't maintain the fields. The town doesn't maintain the fencing on the fields. It's Board of Education property, therefore the Board of Education maintains the fencing, which, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't been updated or replaced in probably close to 35 years.
Oh, is it fencing or just a backdrop, like for the baseball field?
The fencing on the baseball field, where our children play kickball and have their recess on a daily basis.
But recreation also uses it considerably a lot as well. Is it just the backdrop for the baseball softball field?
Yes, yes.
So I'm just saying, perhaps we want to.
We've had that discussion. We work hand in hand with the town, and it's the Board of Education's responsibility to replace and repair the fencing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions in regards to the budget presentation? Sure, absolutely. You don't have to restate your name or address.
Okay, thanks. So I saw in the minutes, the legal reserve from, the budget was appropriated from the surplus was like, I think it was 478,000. That surplus, that's from this year, sorry?
No,
from
no, that's from last year's audit. So last year's audit was 400,000. And then when I work on the budget, there's a lot of moving parts in the education software for the budget, and they made me appropriate another $78,000. So that's where it's 478,000 for appropriation of fund balance, but the 400 came from last year's audit. So when this school year is over, if there's any excess fund balance, it goes to the 25-26 school year.
Which will be, if there will be this 478,000 in legal reserve?
No, that 478 is going into the 24-25. We're in 23-24.
24.
That 478 is appropriated in the 24-25 budget.
Understood, next year, I'm sorry, yeah. So next year, there will be 478 going into the legal reserve.
No. It's called legal reserve on the state website.
Okay.
It's really fund balance appropriated. So if we don't have the same level of fund balance coming out of this year's budget, say it's reduced by 200,000, I'm just making that up, then you have to, if you don't have enough revenue to cover that 200 from other auxiliary revenues, then you have to cut. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I wish I did. I don't understand. So
I'm sorry, if you're going to speak, we just need you to come up and
I
state
will
your
sit
name.
down and let me,
Yeah.
you could explain to me later, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll get it
You'll
explained to me.
come to me later.
Anyone else? Any questions in regards to the budget presentation? Okay, if there's no questions, Kathleen, thank you very much. We'd like to open the floor to public comments on agenda items only. So if anyone has any public comments on agenda items, please feel free to come up and address the board. Just state your name and your address. Yes, considering the fact it's being cut, you can come on up.
I don't have to restate it. So, all right, my question is, from before, you're sitting there, you guys are saying that obviously education and getting the special needs and all that stuff out of district, all that stuff is important to get them there. Obviously, you need to get people that are in town to school as well, right? Somebody like myself, I work down in Piscataway. I'm an hour away, and that's at best without traffic. Now, I have an extra expense because before and after school is what? $400 a month. That's 10 months out of the year. That's $4,000. 2 cars worth of gas, right? That expense is coming out of the parent's pocket now. It's already expensive for all of us to even live in this town. And now we've got to shell out even more money for our kids to go to school, right? Unless we have our parents who already raised their kids, bring their grandkids to school, which is unfair to them, right? And then on top of that, now you're asking all these kids that are going to be out busing that don't have the luxury of a stay-at-home mom. You know, that's an awesome luxury to have. I had one growing up, loved it. I benefited from that. But now you're in a 2-income world. You need 2 people working. And even the stay-at-home moms usually have at-home jobs, right? So how are you expecting all these people to sit there and try to get these kids in between either at-home jobs, or even people that, my day is a 10-hour day, if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And then I've got to worry about getting my kid at 6 o'clock when daycare ends. And if I'm not there and I'm continuously late, then I got to worry about CPA being called because I'm a bad parent, all because I have to fight 287 traffic. And I'm not the only one within this town that has this issue. And there's nothing being done for those kids. Nor do I think a kid should be in school from 7 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. That is not how we were raised. That's not how our kids should be raised. So what's the plan moving forward here? Because, everybody complained about the $1,400 that they had to pay for busing. I'll pay it. I don't care. I thought it was a little ridiculous coming from, we never had to pay that originally. But now we are just sitting there saying, hey, parents, fend for yourselves, figure it out.
Yeah.
That's not fair to the parents within this town.
So I can tell you that 3 of the 4 members are affected by this decision on busing. 3 of the 4 board members pay for subscription busing, me being one of them. These decisions are never easy. We make them based upon factual information, data presented to us by our business administrator and our auditors. We're fortunate enough to have Joe on the board, who's a CPA, and it's a very difficult decision, and it's not an easy one for anyone. But I could assure you it's a decision that is going to help us in the very near future and 3 and 5 years down the road. This is not something that we want to do, nor should it be something that's new. Busing has been discussed since 2017. I've been on the board, this is my 4th year. It's been a topic of conversation every single year since I was elected. So this shouldn't come to a surprise to many. This has been brought up over and over and over, which is why 85 or 90% of the sending districts and towns have gotten rid of subscription busing before, because it's a drain on the school system. So I understand, but unfortunately, COVID created unprecedented times. It created unprecedented increases in transportation, fuel, health insurance, benefits, all unforeseeable. So now the board is tasked with a difficult decision on presenting a fiscally strong budget, not only for this year, where we can keep classroom sizes small, maintain all of our teachers, but also plan for years to come. So there's no easy answer. And we sympathize because we are affected by this as well. But when we make this decision, it's based upon data, not emotion. It's based upon education over transportation. So unfortunately, we sympathize. We sympathize with all of the members of the community that are affected by this. But the board unanimously feels that this is the decision that needs to be made that's student-centered for all the students and the district for not only this budget year, but years to come.
And have you guys worked with Tiny Treasures about, hey, if you're within?
So that's a great question, and I'll a preview to that because I'm sure it's going to come up. We've been in touch with Tiny Treasures, and we're working on a plan for them to offer services to the parents in the district, either in one school or both schools. If it's in both schools, obviously, it would help the traffic of transportation and pickup and drop-offs. If it's in one school, the board will provide, by adding a route, busing from one school to the other to get the children to and from before and after care. We've already been in contact with the mayor and council in regards to crossing guards and sidewalks where permitted. And as recent as today, we sat with police leadership, and we're working on a detailed plan that's safe and feasible to accommodate the kids affected by this decision. So we've honestly spent years in going back and forth with busing. And it was discussed 4 years ago when I was first on, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, especially after COVID. We brought the transportation increases to the general public. It's something that's discussed quite often. And as recent as the last meeting, I believe Joe stepped in and said that this is a luxury that we just cannot afford. And that's the reality. It's not what everyone wants to hear, but that's the truth. And you could see by Kathleen's presentation that nearly 72% of our budget is salary and benefits. So
If we were here next year, it'd be gone the year after, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make any sense. We don't gain anything by keeping it an extra year, we just lose more.
I mean, I still think there should be other alternatives that are looked at.
we
So
welcome
if we did,
suggestions.
but if we did, let's just be real here. If we did, we run out of options, right? There's low-hanging fruit, which is very few, and then there's other decisions that, while there are people that are gonna be pissed off, probably pisses off even more numbers of people. So we have to explain that decision. Or we could just say, every classroom should have 25 kids, and maybe that'll fix a lot of things.
So I
But
think what
that's
Mi-
not beneficial
yeah.
to the student.
I think what Mr. Feedy's saying, we do have options. And we don't want to go down that route. We appreciate our staff members. We appreciate the fact that they spend time day in and day out helping educate your children. So when push comes to shove, are there options? The only viable option is to get rid of staff, and that's not something we're prepared to do.
It's not an easy decision. I know a lot of people in your situation.
I do not agree.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else have any comments on agenda items only? Sure, come up here.
Sorry, I am gonna, it's Tyler, 21 Henrietta Drive. I do want to restate Tracy's question and to Ms. Morano, because we are trying to understand what F means on the agenda. So, you know, letter F, yeah. So page, and I don't have a page number, unfortunately. It seems that there's a budget surplus that is going into next year of roughly $478,000. That's what it looks like here, and then it's put in a legal reserve. And so, of course, we get excited because we think there's more money. So can you just kind of explain what that
Sure.
is?
So again, at the end of last year, which was our audit as of June 30th, it came out probably December. There was called fund balance, $400,000 excess fund balance that was applied to the 24-25 budget.
For next year.
Yes, the one that we're going to start July 1. The 78,000 came from the district, the state budget software when they do a lot of moving parts, and they said, okay, you have to appropriate another 78. So that number is a plug number that helps us expand our expenses.
So do we in fact have a surplus of that figure?
That surplus
For
is
next
going
year?
into next year's budget, 24-25.
And that was already allocated in the line items that you showed before. So
That's
that is not a
correct.
surplus, that's been
That's
appropriated to all of the
Right,
expenses
that's
that you already
correct.
described.
That's correct.
Okay,
It
thank
acts as a revenue.
Anyone else on agenda items only? Okay, we'll close that portion and move forward. Come on up. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Gabby Cicchetti, 20 Donna. I just wanted to know if there's an update on the roof at Stevenson? Remember last time you were?
Yes,
gonna
so
check?
thank you, Gabby, for actually bringing that up. So the last meeting, there was a couple concerns, and that would fall under old business, but we'll address it right now and get it out of the way. There was a young lady, resident Melissa. Okay, and I had an opportunity to speak to Melissa a couple days later. Unfortunately, it took me about a week to get back to her, but after the concerns, I spoke with John, and he and I and Dr. Tribuco had an opportunity to go up on the roof at Stevenson, and they kind of gave me a thorough inspection of where the problems are and what steps need to be done to repair them. So since then, we did go over, and I explained this to Melissa, and I'll be more than happy to share it with the community. The roofing material that was used in Stevenson is such that it's a material that is not only the roof, but it's the interior ceiling as well. It's all one piece. And that particular material is anti-mold and mildew. So mold and mildew cannot grow on it whatsoever. And in fact, the sole purpose of this roof is for industrial manufacturing and schools, and it's used for that purpose. Now, Mrs. Boza asked a question at the last meeting as well in regards to a lemon law. Unfortunately, there's no lemon laws on roofs. That just falls on their cars. But we do have a 15-year warranty, and I believe a 30-year warranty. And we're how many years into it, John?
12.
So not being a roof expert and knowing that there's 18 years left on the particular warranty, I asked for John to reach out for the roofing manufacturer and the installer and set up a meeting to come back with me as a board member, Dr. Tribuco as the school principal, and John as our head of maintenance, and kind of go over with me what can be done in the future to prevent the patches of, we patch one area and another area leaks. So we have some suggestions for them. We feel confident that once they're on site and I could talk with them, that will be successful to limit the damage moving forward and kind of get it under control. One of the reasons that we experience severe leakage is because there was a problem with our internal sump pump. So the water drains down to a well. That well then is activated by sub pump, and that water sub pumped out. Well, unfortunately, there was a malfunction, and the water was being pumped directly back onto the roof. So it was sitting and draining, and it was causing even further damage and leakage than would be normally created by rain. So I expressed that to Melissa, and she was extremely thankful. And thank you for reminding us that it was a topic of conversation. So we're waiting on the manufacturer and the company that holds the 30-year warranty to set up a date to meet us out on site. And like I said, I'm very familiar. We spent about an hour walking every inch of the roof and kind of have a good, understanding of what the problem is and how we could address it. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, so under personnel, certificated staff, to approve the renewal of the non-tenured certificated staff as listed. Number 2, to approve the maternity leave of absence as listed. For number 3, to approve the New Jersey Learning Acceleration Grant Tutor as listed. Number 4, to approve the club advisor as well as the revised club approval as listed. For B, to approve the reappointment of the non-tenured paraprofessionals, secretaries, and custodians as listed. Number 2, to approve the reappointment of the tenured secretary as listed. For number 3, to accept the resignations that are listed. Under employment, to approve the employment of the Stevenson School playground, cafeteria / office aide as listed. And for C, to approve the fully qualified substitutes as listed.
Motion?
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Ms. Giandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Outside?
Yes.
Mr. DePesky?
Yes.
Okay, so under curriculum and program, to approve the 2023-24 school calendar revision as listed. Under B, to approve the professional development workshops as listed, and just a note that Mr. Varengia's workshop is coming out of Title II funds. And that's it for curriculum and program.
Motion?
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Ms. Giandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Outside?
Yes.
Mr. DePesky?
Yes.
All right, and the last thing is policy, to approve the following first readings of the policies that are listed and regulations.
Motion?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Giandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Outside?
Yes.
Mr. DePesky?
Yes.
Okay, under page 6, business resolutions, ask the board to approve consent resolutions, items A through U. I will explain them. The first part on page 6 is the approval of the minutes from March 3rd, 10th, 14th, 16th, 17th, and 21st. Under finance, approve the bills and claims from March 19th through April 15th. Transfer of funds, that's listed on the top of page 7, attachment E. Treasurer's reports ending March 31st. Formal adoption of the final budget for the 24-25 school year as listed on page 7, 8, and 9. Under contracts, I'm asking the board to approve the network infrastructure wiring at Stevenson School in the amount of $4,991.30. I'm asking the board to award, yay, the roofing project for Arco Construction in the amount of $567,900. On the top of page 10, I'm asking the board to approve the change order, which goes back really to last year in the amount of $14,127.65. Under O, award of contract for JCT Solutions in the amount of $224,659.53. Under grant approvals, every year I apply for a safety grant award, and this year it's in the amount of $2,129 that William helped me establish for how we're going to use these funds once we get the money after July of 2024. Under Q, the Essex County Educational Service Commission, these are for out-of-district and in-district assessments if Megan needs that. Buildings and grounds under R, purchase of a replacement lawnmower in the amount of $13,382.36. Page 12, I'm asking the board under item S to approve the control sun pump for Stevenson School in the amount of $6,809.70. Under T, building use forms as listed on page 12. And under U, this is for the backdrop fencing for the fields at both Churchill and Stevenson. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Was that Andrea that made the motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Andrea.
And a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Jandoli?
Yes.
Mr. Feedy?
Yes.
Ms. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. D. Pasquale?
Yes. Okay, anything under old business? Anything under new business? Committee reports? Sure.
So I'd just like to give a committee report on the HSA. We had a meeting last night, and they mentioned that the Tricky Tray at Mountain Lakes will be held on May 15th. The last day to buy their tickets is tomorrow, and you can buy them on their website. I'd also like to thank them. I think Anthony and I were able to go to the Color Run, which occurred a couple of weeks ago. It's just a really wonderful community event. They raised over $13,000, and it was just a nice event that brought our whole town together. Really nicely done. So we appreciate all the support, and thank you for all your help.
Yeah.
I'd also like to talk about CPAC, which is the Special Ed Committee. They had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they had a lawyer present on parental rights. So this is an ongoing committee that's fairly gaining momentum, which we appreciate, and they're looking to have another parental meeting, I think in June. Yep. And I also was able to attend Career Day at Churchill School, and I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Mrs. Sarna and her committee and Mr. Santana. Wonderful day. It was all of them. It was really a wonderful event for our kids and get to hear different jobs and learn about different careers. So really well done and well put together, and really a day that our kids really enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Joe, I know you have it kind of easy tonight because Kathleen did
I
all
wanted
the
to
hard
just
work,
say
but
that, yeah, thank you to Kathleen. That was a great presentation. We've approved the budget. I get to put in for vacation time. And that's it. That's the update.
thank you very much.
I just have a
Ange?
couple of items on curriculum. We met with Dr. Cicatelli, Dr. Tribuco, Anthony and myself met with Dr. Cicatelli, Dr. Tribuco, Mr. Santana, back on, actually, I didn't put the date. It was a week or two ago.
About a week and a half
About
ago.
a week and a half ago. We went over a meeting that the principals had with West Essex and the sending districts regarding the new math program. The Churchill teachers had a chance to sort of pilot the program. They piloted the 2022 version and the 2025 version to see which they felt would be best suited for the kids here, and got some feedback from the neighboring towns. The middle school felt that the 2022 version was actually more rigorous than the 25, so that's what the district has decided to go with. They're going to be purchasing 2 classroom sets with the teacher additions. And that's all I have on curriculum. I'll move on to technology. Just a few items to highlight. William and Ahmad, right, is working to finalize the specifications for the server relocation. The door swipe system in one of the trailers was malfunctioning. That has since been restored. Chromebooks continue to be sent out for repair. Some of those repairs include cracked screens, broken keyboards, and battery issues. There were new projector bulbs that were ordered and installed to, is it both the schools? Both Stevenson and Churchill? Okay, so both schools. They conducted NJSLA infrastructure trial testing with Mr. Varenja, and repaired and reset the TPAS system at Churchill and Stevenson. The computer was not checking in the visitors. That's it.
Thank you very much.
I guess my question would be, do we have anyone from the Fairfield Education Foundation here?
We have a couple members.
We do have a couple members.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question was just to you guys, we know that you had your last fundraiser, and we were just wondering where the money was being allocated to for the schools.
I believe they work directly with our principals and our superintendent in regards to the allocation of the funding. But one of them could probably give you a more definitive answer than that.
Hi, how are you? How are you?
Lauren Mattiliano, Form Eisner. I serve as one of the vice presidents on the trustee board for the Ed Foundation, and we are in the process of deciding where the monies are going to go. We had a meeting with the superintendent along with Dr. Tribuco and Mr. Santana, and we are in the process of evaluating and designating a grant committee where we are going to be rolling out to the teachers a process for grants to ask for submission. We will have the grant committee evaluate, and then we will decide where the funds will be appropriated. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to public comments on non-agenda items only.
Hi, Nicole Sudol, 20 Allen Drive. Am I allowed to ask a quick question? I just want to know where to direct my comment.
Sure.
Okay, so regarding the recent reassignment of the kindergarten aides, where did that final decision lie? Because I would just like to make sure I'm directing my comment to the right person.
So I can start off and then pass it over. So this has been stated in the past at Board of Education meetings. Unfortunately, the Board of Education has no say in the reallocation or of positions or personnel
Perfect, that's so helpful right
whatsoever.
off the bat.
So
Thank
a
you.
question in regards to how a staff member is either relocated or assigned is really
Perfect.
falls under our superintendent and administration, so.
Okay, thank you. So I am a little bit confused about the reassignment of the kindergarten aides than Dr. Cicatelli. I'm well aware of the constant movement of K-aides this year. I have a kindergarten daughter. But that doesn't mean they're not needed. In fact, they were so very needed that when we were trying to pass these budget line items, specifically line 2 for the lunch aides, it was drilled home that these lunch aide positions affect more than the lunchroom. They affect kindergarten aides and guided reading in the lower grades. At the principal's coffee, this was discussed. At meetings, it was discussed. I quote, kindergarten aides play a crucial role in the classroom. They are involved in each lesson and they run our learning centers when we are leading a small group for guided reading. Quote, if a student falls down during the day with a certain skill, they pull them to the side and make sure they have that skill by the end of the day. Quote, right now they are instructed to do playground or recess for 1st and 2nd grade because of loss of funding, and that's why we're missing them, and that's why this vote needs to pass. Quote, the kindergarten program at Stevenson is very unique, and we provide a strong foundation for the kids to step on and grow. If we start picking apart that foundation, the program will change. Quote, the small group kindergarten and instruction in our classrooms is like no other. From a 1st grade teacher, I also want to talk about the impact of the kindergarten aides on 1st grade. They are an enormous academic support to us. They come in every day during guided reading to support our program. The support of the kindergarten aides was extremely critical. I think you know where I'm going with this. How are these aides not critical anymore? I can't imagine it's for the budget since reassignment wouldn't change. It's not like a hire or fire where it changes money in, money out. I can't imagine it's because of an immediate special education IEP violation since this movement is not being done till the fall. So I really lack of understanding the motivation behind this. And just because they've been pulled this year for our district shortcomings does not mean they aren't needed. It means we need to do much better. Our youngest and most vulnerable students should not be the ones we're picking from first. My daughter's in K, and I've watched her learn to read in a few short months. And anybody whose child has had the privilege of being with Mrs. Mancuso will understand that my 10-year-old still yells across the house when I'm annoyed at him, who loves you? So these aides mean so much more than academic, which I know that's what we have to structure our planning around. But they are little kids who sometimes have issues, getting to the restroom on time. Someone gets injured out. I need to understand how in 5 short months, we went from kindergarten aides being critical and crucial to simply not needed anymore.
So thank you for your comments, and no one has ever said that they're not critical or they're not crucial. Okay, so that is absolutely not something that the administration believes. When we are going through a budget process, whenever we put the budget together, every year, we always go over what we are allotted. Kathleen cannot submit a budget that is in the red. It just doesn't work. You have to make it green. When we are creating our budget and when we start looking to see when there are issues in the budget as far as, okay, we put together our wants, we put together our needs, all the wants go out the window, right? It's everything that we need. So when you do that, and now you're still over, and we still can't submit a budget, that's an issue. We work as an administrative team to go over everything that is in that budget. No decision is made in isolation, so I think people need to understand that. The board doesn't make the decision, the administration makes the decision, and then we make that recommendation to the board, and then they either approve or not. So I just want that to be clarified. So that's where we come with that. In the special ed budget, there were aides put in there for next year, 4 of them that she needed. When we were over with our budget, we were like, okay, well, we have about $100,000 that we need to get out of this so that she can actually submit the budget, okay? So when you are doing a process of that nature, we're like, okay, so what does that allocate? When you're looking at that, what does that mean? It's teachers, it's staff. We cut everything else out of the budget that we possibly could. We didn't want people to lose their jobs. So when you're looking at reallocating, special ed trumps everything. As much as people don't want to accept that or understand that, that is the case. If a child moves in tomorrow that requires an instructional aid, we, by law, have to provide that aid. Anyone who is a general ed aide today can become a special ed aide tomorrow if we don't have a special ed aide for that child. Everyone needs to understand that. So that's where the shuffling goes. So when you're looking to try to submit a budget that is in the green, okay, you have to look at all of your things. Do we cut a teacher or 2? Do we reallocate so no one loses a job? That's what we wound up doing. So nobody is saying at all, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand. No one is saying that any of our staff, I don't care what your role is in the district, no one is saying that they're not important. Every single person that contributes to this district is important. Nobody would ever say that they're not. That is not the case. And I think people need to understand you can't mix importance with a budget. You just can't. We're not cutting people. We're not saying, you know what, this is extra. We don't need this anymore. That is not the case. No one would ever do that. We know how they're critical. They have done so much. They're not just sitting there with the students and just monitoring them. They are working with them and doing academic things with them. We know that. I've watched it. So no one thinks it's okay to do, but I don't know where else you would like us to get $100,000 so that she could submit a budget.
So can I ask like a piggyback question then, or no? Because I know you don't want to go back and forth, so please.
Yeah.
Sure.
But then my question is, I mean, this can't have just come out of nowhere, right? We've had budget struggles for a long time. So we had these line items on the ballot in November. We chose to put.
What line item?
Not the 3 line items we had.
Gotcha,
We
okay.
chose to put bus aids on there. Why didn't we even look ahead with some forward thinking skills and saying, you know what, with the special ed needs on the rise, special ed needs on the rise, why wouldn't we put kindergarten aid money then there? If it's a budget issue, why did we wait till last minute when we just brought these lines to vote? Because I know darn well budget line would have passed number 3 if it said kindergarten aids and not bus aids.
Well, that's been a question that we have been asked, the board has been asked over and over and over again about bus aids. So in order for people to understand the cost, because nobody wants to hear the numbers, right? So in order to put it on the ballot, which we didn't think it was really going to pass, but we figured if people really want the bus aids, this is what it's going to cost. That's what it's going to cost the taxpayers, and they can vote yes for it if they wanted to, right? So it didn't pass for that reason. I don't think people wanted to put their money towards that.
Yeah. Now, if I could just jump in, I had the opportunity attending the HSA meeting last night, and Melinda was there as well because we sit on the chair. And there was a discussion afterwards with a wonderful community member who's also a special education specialist in another district. And she was explaining to us that it was as recent as just yesterday that she had a student that qualified for an aid. Right, so that's enlightening to us as board members. For me, who's sits on the special education committee, but don't necessarily get involved in the day-to-day. So it was I don't want to say refreshing, but it was enlightening to hear that this is a very common thing. A child could be not classified one day or need services one day, and then all of a sudden need them the next. So if you're asking, is it possible? I think we were given, that information last night firsthand from a teacher at a district that, yes, it is. It happens on a daily basis. It's unfortunate it's happening here.
No, absolutely. And I'll step down. Absolutely. But we're talking about reassignment in the fall. So we're not talking about an imperative need where a student came in and needed an aid. We have to pull someone really fast. So I know what she said is accurate. I've experienced it, but it doesn't really apply to this particular conversation because it's for the fall. It's not an immediate
So one
fall.
thing that I could share as a board representative, we agree with the need for these aids. We are 100% on board with having them, and we're working diligently with administration to make this happen. It's just not something that we can come up here and definitively give you an answer for tonight because there's a lot of deciding factors in the coming months. But we share your concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just state your name and address.
Hi, Alexis Fabricator, 5 Southampton. Hello. I have a soon-to-be kindergartner starting, so this is a hot topic, and happy to be here. Question, there was mention about some funds that were raised through the FEF. Is that something that could be used, in a grant towards funding for AIDS?
So I can touch on this the little bit that I know, and if the members that are here, just please feel free to jump in. You don't have to get up, Lauren, just if I say something that's out of context, just yell it out. From my understanding, no. The purpose of the Education Foundation, which, by the way, works strategically and doesn't report to the Board of Education. It's not like the HSA, where the bylaws their bylaws might be public on a website, but like HSA works and correlates everything hand in hand with the Board of Education. We have appointed liaisons with the Board of Education, right, with HSA. So we're aware of their daily activity, what they're doing with the money, when their fundraisers are, what the money is being allocated to. The Education Foundation is set up a little differently, right? So the Education Foundation, it raises money. They sit with the principals and the superintendent and principals, and they figure out things that are above and beyond that the teachers want in the school, and teachers write grants. And then from what I understand, they establish a grant committee who then takes those grants, reads them and says, okay, if we have $10,000 and we have 4 grants for $5,000 a piece, these 2 are appropriate. Now, the only involvement that the Board of Education has is once those grants are allocated, we as the board can either say we were going to reject this or accept it. We think it's beneficial to the district, which 99.999% times is, because it's an extra that they're providing us. And if it's not, then we just say, hey, no, this isn't a grant we're going to approve. So the money has to be specifically for grants that the teachers have to apply for, and then their grant committee ultimately chooses.
So no?
So no. So no. So no. Yeah. You can come up, please.
Steve Piccinini, Philip Drive. Anthony, this is going to be borderline hysterical. Are we cutting budgets every year based at the 10-cent level that one contingency goes wrong and you're reassigning staff? Where do you staff getting reassigned to? Are we going to have the same issue next year? I understand you guys have put a sharp pencil to this in a really difficult spot, but we need a longer term plan. We can't go budget to budget worrying about 2 aides.
Well,
And if these aides were so less important, why was it different staff that was being let go before you came and you had to ask for more money from the town to get the other ones back? And now these ones are less expendable than the first ones? And, and I got to add one other thing. I'm a member of certain community organizations here. I must have Venmoed 6 times for basic school supplies. We can't give our kids basic school supplies. The incompetence needs to stop. And again, I know you guys are in a tough spot and trying to really in a tough spot between a rock and a hard place. But we need a longer term plan, not meeting the meeting based on one personnel or one aide or school supplies.
So I could address part of this, and then I'm going to move it over to Joe, because I know he wants to chime in on this. We agree, and that's why the Board of Education is taking the stance that it is right now with the budget that we're presenting, because we're aware that we don't want to be year to year. We don't want to let go of staff. We don't want to increase class sizes. And the only way to do that is to really look at the budget. I think there's some miscommunication in regards to why they're being allocated. They're being allocated because special education needs have increased, and those students need one-on-one. Joe, you can jump in anytime.
Our
you got-
makeup of students, if that changes in the wrong direction, it's gonna cost us more money, and that's what's happening. You live paycheck to paycheck once you get to that point. We were at that point 2 years ago. We're trying to build ourselves out.
Guys, I want to be clear. You have my support as a Board of Ed. We put you there, okay, in a recent thing. I'm just saying, long-term, you guys got to really, unfortunately, I'm looking at you guys.
Yeah.
I would have been up there,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at you. You guys got to get us out of this hole. Once
Listen,
and for all. You can't ask for another $100,000 next year. Let's raise everyone's taxes $50, and that only gets us to next June.
You're
We need
you're
a
go-
longer-term plan.
You're gonna have to continue to do ballot questions. Not every single year, but we already know this. I've said this for 8 months. I said this, I got elected in June, well, I got appointed in June. And July, I had a meeting, which they were gracious enough to give me, the people that actually run the schools. I said it then, and we didn't even pass one of the budget questions yet. You will need one every other year for the foreseeable future, or until we can figure out a large referendum, which most of the town doesn't want.
No, understood. It's going to
Your
be a
taxes went up
difficult
$19
marketing.
a month, and we had, well, okay, so half of it was allocated to next year, $19 a month. 19. And it's not that much money. Now, granted, it only gets us back to even from whatever that was 2 years ago, but we need more, because I will not sit up here and pass a budget that cuts a teacher. And a cut is where you have someone last year, now they're no longer employed or we're missing. This year, yes, there were concessions made to make things work, to reallocate based on student makeup in the town. We can't control certain student makeup that we know is going to come. We just had a meeting with Megan, who did a great job. There's potential for even more of those type of students that need those special services, but by spending the money and putting people in the right places, we keep that cost lower. We keep those students down to 4 instead of 8 or 9. That will, you don't want to even, I won't even want to be up here for one of those meetings if that were to happen. So I understand your concern and everybody's concern. Everybody gets very emotional. I have no emotion in my job. I won't bring that here. It has to be facts. It has to be solid, concrete information. They have to tell me what they need, what's more important. You have to weigh it. I volunteered to be up here so that I could do that, and that I could also listen to everybody kind of be upset about certain decisions. I get it, but it has to be factual decision-making, not what's gone on. The emotional decision-making happened already on this board, which is why busing was 7 years too long. That's a compound effect. When you have busing, so when you have free busing for 7 years, it's a compound effect negative to us.
Yeah,
not
years
positive.
prior to where we subsidized busing last year at the sum of $250,000, $260,000. If you go back 5 years and you account for the money that the district spent in busing, we would be sitting at a surplus right now, but we're not. So we are indeed thinking long-term. Now, we've had this conversation, Joe and I, in finance meetings before with Kathleen and Sue. More often than not, every time we feel like we're getting ahead, the potential of an added district placement comes in, that could be in excess of $350,000, $375,000. So you could do the good work all year long, and you can get to February and say, you know what? Let's pat ourselves on the back. We got a surplus of $100,000, $100,000 more than we did last year. And Megan sends an email, and it all changes. So we are proactively not only planning for the future, but planning for the what-ifs.
Guys, I think you missed my point.
I don't know.
agree with everything you said. What you're not understanding is saying strategically, you can't go to a vote every year. We need, it's going to be how unpopular you're going to be. You want to put a referendum every year for 100,000, 200,000. What I'm saying strategically, you guys got to come up with a longer-term plan. It's going to be a hard sell. We know it is.
We had a longer-term plan.
But you
I'm
did-
sorry, Joe, and you can jump off of this. We had a longer-term plan. It was the referendum. It was $355 a year. It was an average of $19 per taxpayer.
Which one?
And
The
it was
one for
And it was voted, it was
5
voted
years
down
ago,
6 to
5 years
1.
ago, yeah, whatever it was.
So that
It was
long-term,
like 97% of loss by, if
But-
that happened, somebody didn't do their job, because nothing should fail by 97%.
what, 6 to 1, 6 to 1, and 85% of what we're addressing now and the shortfalls we have with facilities, maintenance, was all addressed then. And COVID and the lack of children in our schools created this perception that we didn't want our children in schools when we were just following, state guidelines, and that's why it failed 6 to 1. Now, I wasn't on the board when it started.
I'm going to disagree with
Yeah.
you. If it
And I
was- if it was
appreciate
done
that.
properly, with competence, and I'm not pointing at any specific person, you don't lose by 97%.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
It's just all old news at this point.
51-49, you got a point, I'll sit down. But you don't lose by 97% if you did it and when I say you, I don't mean any individual.
We
I'm
understand.
looking at.
We
Done
understand.
right, so maybe it needs to be done again. So what I don't want to hear, Anthony, what you just said is, we tried a longer-term strategy 4 years ago and failed, we're not going to try again.
Well, I can't say that, Steve, on behalf of us, because
That's
we
what you
weren't,
said.
but we weren't involved. So a lot of the shortfalls we have now would have been addressed
Okay,
at that time. Now, long-term plan. We have a 3-year plan. We have a 5-year maintenance plan. So exactly what you're asking us to do, we're doing. And in that process, difficult decision like busing has to be made.
a lot is difficult to see, but I think you're going to have to get to some kind of,
And here's why I don't think I
Really?
missed your point, because you started by saying this has to stop. I'm telling you, we just started. We just started.
Yeah.
Trying to fix the problems of 20 years.
but when that's
Just saying.
stop, I mean, is, we asked for $100 last year, and this year we need 102 because we're $2 short. Don't ask for the 100, ask for,
Yeah,
150.
we'll ask for 500 and hopefully it'll pass.
That's-
Sure, we
that's
have to,
what
we
I
have to,
meant with
it has to be
stop.
strategical. It's not just gonna be guess.
that was my point, what has to
Yes.
stop.
And we have to, right. And some things you can't go to ballot for, but that's a whole totally different conversation. Like a lot of these maintenance things are required. They're health and safety. We can't just leave them alone. We have to allocate money to that first when we're doing these projects.
9 million
You
over
can't
5
put that-
years?
Yeah, 9.2. You can't put that on a ballot. They won't let you do that. Or else that's the easiest. 9.2 on a ballot, everything gets fixed. You can't do it.
Understood. We need a longer-term plan.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Gail Batone, 47 Big Piece Road. Would you accept volunteers for these aides positions in kindergarten? I don't know who to address that to, but would they accept volunteers?
So
for-
that's something that they could look at if we can't reinstate them. I mean, we're not done, like, looking at where we are with the budget but we have to submit a budget, right? So we have to allocate where everybody's going right now, but we still have time to look to see if we're going to, but I don't see why we couldn't.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd be happy 1 day a week, 2 days a week in the mornings. Yeah.
Why didn't we think of that? That's freaking amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Nancy Bertoldi. I really didn't plan on doing this, but I feel, Susan, with all due respect, I do have to say something. I have had the pleasure of being a paraprofessional in Fairfield for 17 years, actually 19. 2 years I was a substitute, a long-term sub, and then I was hired 17 years ago. I was told this year that next year there is not a position for me. I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous. I'm talking funny. I would like to know, and maybe you don't really have to answer this question, but I want everyone to know, and you do know, Mr. Feedy, that I have been placed this year since September in 7 different classrooms. And I find it hard to believe that after this happening this year, I am not needed anywhere next year. I'm sorry. I've been here a long time, and I love the children. Anyone who knows me here knows that I will do anything for the kids. I love them, and I'm confused. I'm confused. And like I said, you know what I have done this year, especially you. And I'm not blaming you or pointing fingers, but you know the situation. So how is that possible? 7 rooms I went into.
So I'm going to have to yield to our superintendent because the Board of Education doesn't get involved, once again,
Okay.
in personnel or placement. It doesn't fall under our jurisdiction.
With all due respect, Susan, how is that possible?
No one's saying that people aren't needed, but again, we had a budget we had to deal with, right? So we had the four positions that we still needed. So there was 4 positions that were reallocated. So I will be more than happy to speak with you privately. I don't think
Love
we
that.
should speak out.
I would love that because
okay.
it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
7 rooms this year, and I went in with no pride, I did what I had to do, and actually, as I was pulled out of each room, I was sad to leave those children. I really was. And then I went on to the next room and did what I had to do. And now next year, I'm not needed. And I was told there is nowhere for me to go. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth, but I did have to say something. I can't leave here after a total of 19 years working in this district with this on my mind. I can't. I've received emails from parents. I've received Facebook messages from parents, present and past, saying, what is going on? How is this happening? I don't know. I don't know. And I can't, I mean, you all know what I make. It's not a lot, and that's okay. I do this because I love it. I love the kids. I could have left for a lot of different things, and I didn't. I can't imagine that my salary is gonna make or break Fairfield. I just can't. You know, this district, I can't imagine that an aide salary is gonna make a difference. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I would love to talk to you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Allison Minoso, 7th Washington Drive. I want to revisit the topic around the reassignment of the kindergarten aides because I've heard a few different comments, and I think for all of our benefits.
Is it on? Is the green light on?
Green light on? Just tap it.
Now,
Yes.
I'll try again. Allison Miasso, 7 Southampton Drive. I'd like to revisit the topic of the kindergarten aides because I've heard a few different parts of the conversation throughout tonight's meeting. And I think for the benefit of us in the room, we want to make sure we walk out with a clear understanding of the next steps. So I've heard very clearly that the board doesn't get involved in direct personnel, in reassignments of personnel. So I understand that as fact. But I've also heard now twice from Dr. Ciccatelli that these decisions were based in the budget, which is ultimately what was brought forward as part of the agenda. So it feels like we're taking both sides of that equation. But if I step back, and I'm just, I don't want to get into technical debates on commentary. I think Nicole did a wonderful job of quoting some of the various statements that came from the broader teachers and administrators about how we value the aides in the kindergarten classroom. I could also cite academic literature where it shows a direct correlation of a presence of an aide in a kindergarten classroom in the overall improvement of both reading and math scores. And I'm concerned not only for this incoming kindergarten class, but also for the future academic trajectory, that if we put them behind, it'll follow them for the rest of their academic careers. Now, with that point said, beyond the children themselves, I have other concerns that have also been raised at prior board meetings that I think need to be contended with. The first, we've heard from our union that there has been a continued attrition of our staff. We are not losing new hires. We are losing very valued, seasoned professionals who spent years in our district. That is a worrying trend that is continuing. And I'm very concerned that these types of decisions, although grounded in difficult budgetary decisions, are going to now further exacerbate that issue. And we may find a continued attrition, particularly in our early education, particularly in kindergarten and in our Stevenson classrooms. In addition to that, I'm also very concerned about how these combined factors are going to be perceived within our community. We took 3 items to ballot. In those items, we were very successful in passing 2. I don't want to get into a discussion about bus aids. I know why it was put forward for ballot. We all have our opinions about why it didn't pass. That's a different topic for discussion. I think perhaps a portion of the question that was being asked earlier was trying to understand that as part of that discussion, if we put forward in ballot item 2, budget for lunch aids, partly founded in the fact that we knew
that was a contributing factor to why kindergarten aides were being removed from classrooms, why we didn't also then consider if there was a need for a ballot item to further buffer potential need for paraprofessionals and aides that could forestall instances like we're having now, where we have change in demographic, which is driving an increase in special education, which is then driving increases in cost, and therefore causing us to have to reallocate staff. Further, you're hearing from community members, there's a perception about not wanting to come year over year for potential ballot items. I echo Mr. Feedy's sentiment that I think we have a long journey before us. You've heard me speak about that in previous meetings. I understand that we're going to have to find constructive solutions to help build us back to a better, more fiscally sound budgetary situation. But in the short term, I think there is a perception in the community that what was being represented as some of the major reasons and driving factors for why we got out the vote to pass the ballot items that passed in November is now seemingly being eroded. And I think that is a very challenging position to put ourselves in, because if we have any interest in putting forward additional ballot items going forward, we don't want to be in a position where we're being either accused of lack of transparency, which I know the board has heard numerous times in the past, or be in a position where people feel that facts were misrepresented. So I think, kind of echoing back to Dr. Cicatelli's point, that when evaluating a budget, there's wants and needs, and I can definitely understand that special education are necessary costs. There's legal basis behind those costs, but I also understand that there was a complex set of decisions that ultimately landed us into the decisions we made in tonight's budget. And hearing now that from today's budget that's being passed to what may actually present itself at the start of the school year, I would like to understand in more concrete terms, is this something that Dr. Cicatelli is looking at? Is this something that Dr. Cicatelli, in conjunction with the administration, is looking at? If the board is involved in any way, and if we as a community are going to be informed between now and the start of school year, if there are any changes available that will allow us to preserve these positions and ensure the aides in the kindergarten classrooms for the start of the school year. Because I think that type of information and insight would be tremendously valuable in forestalling loss of talented staff from our district.
Thank you. So I can touch on two things. One, it will be extremely quick, and one's going to take a little help from Kathleen. Angela and I had an opportunity to have a curriculum meeting about a week and a half ago, which we mentioned earlier. We are for the aides. We are in support of them, and we are working hand in hand with administration from 2 days ago, this morning, and even this afternoon, with back and forth on how we can make this work. We're just not in a position right now at tonight's meeting to say, hey, this is going to happen, this is what it's going to be. Now, I could touch on the budget questions. When did the budget questions have to be presented?
March.
Shout it out. March of what?
It's due in March. March
Of what year?
Well, last year it was due March of '23.
So, one of the, it's a very apparent answer. One of the reasons why it wasn't brought to our attention then, or the board didn't think to put it on the agenda, is because you're talking about a year ago. And the transition as to why these positions need to be allocated was put forward about 3 weeks ago. So it's hard for the Board of Education a year in advance to see the needs of special education, right? So, excuse me, if you want to speak, you can please come up and state your name and come on up here. We appreciate and welcome everyone. So it's hard for the board over a year ago to foresee that this was going to be a problem, right? We listened to the community. These are the topics that they wanted to address on the questions, and that's what we put on. If we would have known a year ago, or north of a year ago, that this was going to be an issue, we would have happily replaced bus aides with kindergarten aides. But I cannot reiterate it that we share in your sentiments. We are pro aides in our kindergarten classes. We are just not in a position tonight to say that we are able to make 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 possible. But I can tell you from a board standpoint, unless anyone says otherwise, we are looking forward to continue working with administration to fulfill those positions.
So can I maybe then follow up? So in terms of concrete next steps, understand that discussions are happening, but if you look across the audience, we have a solid representation from our kindergarten staff as well as our broader community. How will we get informed of these decisions? Because I think it's tremendously important to understand that, number one, there is a strong commitment, which I've heard now from Dr. Cicatelli and I've heard now from the board, and I already know is echoed by the teaching and administration staff, that we all value and believe in the need, not the want, but the need for the kindergarten aides. So on that basis, what is a reasonable expectation as a community member to be informed on that? And is that something that can be decided upon in advance of the start of the school year?
So the reason why it's not discussed tonight particularly, let's just say hypothetically, we find $100,000. And then August of this year, 2 more students are allocated to this district, or 2 more students go from not needing a one-on-one aid to they do. And our plan of reallocating those positions is now sidetracked by what we're legally responsible for. So it's very hard for a board to commit to that. Megan, can you jump in here?
It's not just one-to-one, so it's also class sizes for preschool, for special ed preschool, for our resource rooms. So as that increases, and that could be throughout the year, that I could potentially need an aide to cover a resource room class because you're over the number. If our coming out of early intervention, I can't predict, right? So anytime a kid 120 days before they turn 3, the state calls us, so like I can't predict that. So, we get phone calls whenever, and then that changes our numbers too. So it's just not the one-to-one, it's all aspects of special ed that can happen throughout the school year.
Thank you, Megan. I know firsthand, my youngest is in preschool, and we have gone through the turmoil of having our teacher depart. We've had our aide having to serve as a substitute teacher and having insufficient staffing in the classroom. So I know firsthand about the challenges with the demographics. What I would like to better understand is hearing the sentiment, if there will be further communication that can be shared, if decisions are made, if in this hypothetical sense, there's an opportunity to reallocate anything and identify a budget that could cover, at least now, provisionally, the cost of the aides. I think it would be very valuable for the community to hear that and to know that that was taken seriously from the feedback that was shared in today's meeting, and also hopefully in an opportunity to help encourage that these very valued and seasoned professionals don't make choices over the summer to potentially leave our district, because I think that's a very real risk we face. And then secondly, I would like to understand, given that we do find ourselves in this precarious position where we feel tomorrow the phone could ring and a student who may have a legitimate need may now drive a change in our cost structure, how we are then thinking now about steps we can take to try to help correct that. And again, while maybe a ballot item may not be the most favorable topic, but be able to put that forward in a credible way that will hopefully continue to receive the community's support and help give us a bit of a buffer so that we don't find ourselves continuously in a cycle of this situation.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, Desiree Agrifolio, 53 Carlos Drive. Quick question in regards to, so you guys have said now that we needed to reallocate for staff, for special education needs. Okay, but then we've now let go of one. Why?
I can't discuss personnel publicly with you, so I can't answer that.
But it seems like the reason is budgeting. That seems, because you're saying that you had to reallocate these 4 people.
It is
And
my
now there's a-
understanding that all non-renewed staff members have been provided with information about their non-renewal. And that's as far as the Board of Education can comment.
So there is a specific reason for this person to be let go. Somebody who's been in the school district for 19 years and, for as far as I know, has been a fantastic paraprofessional for the community. All of a sudden, there is a problem with this person.
Like I can't discuss personnel with you.
Okay, so, so are you saying that there's going to be then a new hire for this position?
That position right now has been eliminated. So I can talk
Why?
about a position. I can't talk about a person.
But why has that position been eliminated? That's what my question is. We budgeted for this person. That's
where you're missing it. We did not budget. That's what we put in for next year, that we only can put in for the 4 positions.
Did our budget for our staffing decrease? Did it stay the same? Or is it going to increase? For next year, for 2024 to 2025, is the budgeting for our staff, is it increasing?
For our staff always increase based on increases in their pay.
So then if we are increasing the budget, how are we not having enough money for this staff member.
Because the increases go up with the teachers. So our salary, so the cost of healthcare benefits go up, the cost of insurance goes up, their salary goes up. So as the budget line increases, so do the cost to have these
But
professionals.
you just lost all of these higher paid teachers. They all left, and you are now getting new members who I'm assuming are coming fresh out of school. I'm assuming you're paying them at the lowest step.
Making an
You're
assumption
making
that's
an assumption
incorrect.
that's not true.
But then, okay. So you're saying that then we're obtaining well-seasoned new educators, well-seasoned educators in our school district.
We are facing the same challenges all the sending districts are, with teachers leaving for signing bonuses and higher pay and higher steps on the guide. Fairfield's not the only district.
I think it, what I'm trying to say is rings very true to what every single person that's come up here to say, which is we had passed the line items that were supposed to help us retain these members of our community. So it's shocking to hear that we are losing because we did not prepare for them within our budget, when that was the whole point of the budget. It's concerning.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, and then another question I have is how many secretaries do we have for our schools?
There's one secretary per school.
For our entire education, our entire Fairfield board, the district, the whole district.
Well, secretaries, well, you have 3 secretaries, and then you have clerks. No, I'm sorry. 3, 4, 5 secretaries, right?
District-wide.
5 secretaries,
District-wide.
and then there's 3 clerks? 3 clerks.
Okay, so you're saying that there are 8 administrative secretary/clerks. And are they within that budget that you passed for?
Sue, how many of those secretaries are contracted members in the union?
Okay, so 3, you're saying, of the 8 are within that budget that you put through.
They're all in the budget.
Every single person that works in the district's in the budget, everyone.
So you're saying that there are 8 administrative clerks, secretaries that are there, that are accounted for within the budget. Okay, and those people are more important, it seems like, than our aides, because you keep on saying that the aides are, that you really want to hold on to these aides. How are they more important than our aides, our educators? I just don't see it. How? No one can answer that.
Are you?
No, really, it's.
No, I'm actually shocked too, because now you're trying to pin staff members against others, and unless you're in somebody's role, you don't know what the importance is of their job. And I find it offensive to try to say that someone's job is not relevant. Nobody said the aides were not relevant, so I don't think that's an appropriate question. That's just me personally.
But those are the positions you're getting rid of.
We're not getting rid of positions. We're not. Right now, we
leaving.
reallocated positions because that's what we needed to do, okay? So that we can have the budget. Listen, I'm going to just say something. The district people always look for transparency. There's something that all the staff members know is a June 1st letter. Staff doesn't get what their assignment is for next year until June. This was told out of a courtesy. It was not told to hurt anybody. It was not told for any other reason but to share that right now we are having an issue with putting every person in the spot that they currently are in, but they're going to be placed for the most part, right? So at least they were told that so they can start to acknowledge what is happening if it continues down that road moving forward, so they have time to absorb it and not find out last minute and be blindsided and happy summer. No, we didn't want to do that to people. So it's—
Well, I mean, you legally can't, so.
No, legally I could. We didn't have to tell them anything right now. But we do care about our staff, and we want people to understand, if you're going to shake your head and be disrespectful, then I'm not going to bother responding to you.
I just don't understand how this person's salary is being reallocated.
Thank you
I just
very,
don't understand.
thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate your
I
time.
just don't understand. And so I think we need to do better about making sure that these positions are kept.
Thank you very much for your time and your comments. We appreciate them. Lauren, and then you, Melissa. I apologize.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Oh, Lauren Mazzoliano, 4 Meisner Court. Just a question in regards, Kathleen, to the budgeting. So if we look back, we're just trying to get some clarity on the questions that were on the ballot. If we look back, I'm looking at a list of where we were having appropriation of funds. And I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teachers where we appropriated some of the funds from question 1. Were those teachers hired this year? I believe it was from January to June those funds.
Keep forgetting that. We were not able to hire the speech teacher yet. Megan is still
So essentially that would be about $90,000.
That's 90, yes.
Okay.
But let me just cut you off right there.
Sure.
So any money left from the question that is not spent by auditing, that money is traced because they are separate account lines that are traceable. I had to put a code into them. When the auditor comes in at the end of this year, any unspent money goes into next year's 25-26 budget. So you can't use
Budget
that.
for the speech teacher or budget for something else?
Budget for anything else to be used. It comes in as revenue, just like fund balance appropriated,
Okay.
okay? So you can't take that money from this year and use it to offset the expenses for next year.
No, understood.
Okay.
But I was wondering if you allocate to next year, can you use that in gaps? Like, so can you use that to get more aides possibly?
No, that's what I'm saying. You can't use that money that's ending this year for aids for next year. It skips a year.
Okay, so, but that money is allocated, you have that, and that will be used next year.
The following year.
You can't use it
Following
until
year, we're skipping a
25,
year.
26. You
Okay.
can't use it in 24, 25 budget. So it's like in a placeholder for 25, 26. Then it can go
Okay.
back into the budget. Okay?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right, so that's where it hurts us.
Melissa?
Melissa Padilla, 7 Henrietta Drive. So I'm just want to be careful how I'm wording this, but I agree with a lot of what the moms and the parents and everybody have said out here. There was my son is in kindergarten, and there was some situations in that our classroom experienced this year. That I've notified principals and emails have been gone, and he's been great. But I just want to bring up the situation of what happens right now. He's been telling me that yes, aide comes, she leaves this time, lunchtime, or maybe at this today there was a different person in our classroom. Tomorrow there's a different person in our classroom. And that's the first thing is the inconsistency, right? For these kids, they're 5, they get attached to an aide, all of a sudden the aide's gone, right? Or it's like okay, in this particular scenario in our classroom, there was a classmate that was, just needed a little more attention, okay, let's say. No formal IEP, special, nothing like that legally, needed a little more attention. And thankfully, for the most part, I'm not gonna say all the time, because our awesome teacher was alone at times. Thankfully, there was an aide in the classroom that could help provide a safe, and I'm gonna say the word safe, because there were times where it wasn't, that was able to help create a safe environment for this teacher. In the scenario, which I agree, special education aides are extremely important. I don't think anyone here is saying that they're not. Of course, no, but even so, it's important, right? We care about all of our students. What if our teacher has no aide and there's a situation like what happened in my son's classroom? What does that teacher do? How does she is there someone that will be in charge of, okay, you know what, this particular student, even though they don't have a legal document, don't have an IP, or is not a special, is there someone that will be able to say, you know what, this teacher might need an aide, we might need to shuffle around again? Or who's gonna be in charge of following up? Because I just wanna make sure the teachers feel like they have support as well. And I love our kindergarten teacher, if she knows that. Miss Conti is amazing. But yeah, so I would hate for her to feel like, I have no support. I can't teach this classroom because I have to, focus on other things. It's just, I feel like I mean, for all of the reasons that were said already, the importance of aides. In this in particular scenario, it was to help keep this a safe environment. So who would be in charge of if
so-
we need to pull an aide back into that classroom? I guess that's what I'm trying
So it
to
would
ask.
be like any other classroom that doesn't have an aide in the classroom. They would have to call the office to try to get, the principal down to the office. And
but they're
it's
already,
not
like,
the best
short-staffed, right?
situation, but that is what you wind up doing. You asked a second question, and I think I forgot.
I might have mumbled it in there. Maybe it was just,
All right, maybe you didn't, and I'm thinking you did.
Yeah.
So it's, that's the reality of the situation. I mean, you don't always have a second pair of hands in the classroom. So they would just have to try to either call for their neighbor or, call the
Okay.
office. I
And
mean, if
I'm-
it's a safety issue, they should be calling for the principal.
and I'm pretty sure they have. I think it was just a matter of, we need the staff
Right.
to be able to keep an individual in there and to help. So I think it was, and I get shuffling them around, but I hope that either asking for volunteer aides or something else is on the table, because we can't just be like, well, we have to keep these aides here
Right.
because now they've been shuffled and it's required legally, whatever. We can't, like, what do we tell those teachers that,
Right, well,
sorry,
Dr.
we have no
Tribuco
one
will
today to
work with
help
the
you?
staff. I mean, he's going to have to work with the staff to come up with, addressing their concerns. If this is the way that we're going to start September, that's.
Because, yeah, I think this happened a little after September. This particular friend of ours came in a little bit later into the school year. So again, having an extra person helped keep the kids' environment safe. And I just want to know, like, who would be in charge of, I know we can't push an IEP on anyone or like to pull it.
Oh, that's what you asked. You asked if kids are
No, I know that. I know the answer is
disruptive.
no.
Can-
You can't force any.
No, you said if kids were
legal thing.
disruptive, could you then try to shuffle other aides and things of that nature? So for general ed students, like we don't typically put an aide in a classroom for that particular reason, and I'm not talking kindergarten, any grade level, right? So typically, if you're going to have an aide for a student, they would either need a 504 or an IEP. That was your second question.
Okay. And so what's the, I would hope, what's the other game plan then? Because this situation, this child did not, and it was not very, it has not been a very easy school year for the teacher. So I wanted to know who's following up with.
Well, I
like,
don't know.
maybe
Have they
moving-
brought it to your attention?
Yeah.
They
so-
have?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
he's been awesome with the emails and stuff, but I just want to know who would be if we're shuffling aides around.
Dr.
Okay.
Tribuco.
Dr.
Okay.
Tribuco would be responsible.
Of like hiring or moving people around into another classroom.
Putting a
or
plan in
hiring a new
place that
aide?
is acceptable for the teachers to call for help when needed.
Okay, and if he doesn't have the actual manpower to do so? Like, who would be in charge of, like, what if we needed to?
So again, when we're dealing with
Maybe I'm
staffing-
asking it wrong.
No, it's okay. I know what you're saying. When
Mhm.
we're asking, we're dealing with staffing, like if there's a request from either the principals or even from Megan, that would come to me to say, like, is there a way that we can try to figure out the money? I then usually go to the BA. Is there money that we can try to
Or
to shift?
volunteers or something like
Right.
that?
So, I
Or-
mean, we work together. Like I said earlier, we don't make decisions in isolation, meaning the business administrator and superintendent. We work with everybody in the district that puts together like the actual budget and the educational plans, the administrators. So we work together. We have monthly meetings that we discuss things every month, so.
All right,
we
I
work
understand that. And the principal, I have to say, he's been great. He responded to emails, was on it, and I
Great.
know you guys are, I know he's been looking into it and trying to deal with it the best he could. So I just want to make sure that our teachers feel like they have support in a safety scenario. To wrap it up, in a safety scenario, is there a possibility that people could be moved back into the classroom, or if changes could be remade again?
Again, this is a living, breathing document. We're working on this daily to try to reinstate these positions.
Just want to throw out that
Yep.
scenario because it was unfortunate we had to
Thank you.
deal with it. Thank you.
Hi, Frank Lamort, 4 Suzie Lane. I know we keep talking about the kindergarten aides. I think we can all agree, everybody in this room, we're most concerned about education of our children, which is why we're not really, myself, the busing, I understand we have to do away with it. It's going to affect me too. My kids can't walk to school from where I live. So the only thing is, I think, the aides are really important. Everybody here is saying it. My kids was in kindergarten. My niece is going to be in kindergarten. I have other family in town here. I really think we need to think about I'm not saying other people's jobs aren't important, but we do have a lot of administration, and we're a small district. We have 2 schools. I really think before, and I know they can't meddle in the personnel decisions, but you guys can ask questions. I think you can push the decisions that are being made. I think we need to look more at maybe Other positions, possibly we could combine. I mean, I worked in business, we did away with a position. Somebody took on the role of two, maybe a secretary had to support 2 or 3 people. So I think education's most important. I think the kindergarten aides would be a huge loss. And I just think we have to look at some other solutions before we sign on the dotted line for this. The money is the money, the allocation's the allocation, but I think there's other ways, and I think you guys can push Susan and Dr. Cicatelli and the other people coming in on how we can look at some other ways before we decide this is a final thing. So
Thank you for your comments, Frank. Anyone else? Come on up.
Ashley Antonakis, 17 Southampton Drive. I have a question, and if I missed it because I was late, I apologize. Regarding busing, are there what's the plan? Now that it's gone, new routes, staggered times, I mean, traffic is going to increase more than it is now. So what's the plan for that?
So we did touch on this earlier before you arrived, and we'll be happy to go over it quickly. We are in communication with Tiny Treasures, and we are on whether or not they are going to be utilized in one facility or two. If they're going to be in both facilities, obviously, that's going to lessen the drop-off line at each location. If it's at one facility, the district is prepared to provide busing from one school to the other. We are currently in communication with law enforcement leadership in regards to the safety of getting the children to school. We've been in contact with the mayor and council in regards to sidewalks where applicable and crossing guards. So again, this is a living, breathing plan that we are currently working on. And obviously, for me, I'm affected by it. I said that earlier. My plan is to carpool to and from, which isn't that, great, but it's going to help. I'll utilize before and after care if needed. And we are looking at different things in regards to start times, which is all, contingent upon, several contributing factors that haven't been decided yet.
Okay, and the kids who walk to school more crossing guards and ride their bikes and all of that, right? And
Well, there's kids that walk to school now and they ride their bikes to school now, and that's happens on a daily basis here.
and there's no crossing guards? I don't know, because
There's no crossing guards, no.
None.
Just no.
Okay.
But that happens now. It happens over Route 46 on a daily basis. Kids walk to school and drive to school on their bicycles from Hollywood Avenue over 46 on a daily basis. So these things are already happening. Concerns that the general
Just
public
gonna
have,
increase more.
it's gonna increase
Yeah.
more.
So the time, that's what I was worried about.
Yeah.
Also, second thing, regarding the Education Foundation, I am a co-president of it, and we did meet with the superintendent and the principals, and we shared slides about our whole grant process, our timelines. I think that was shared with you guys, so if it was not,
Yeah.
oh, okay, because that could answer your question on where
Recent, it was
funds are
shared.
going.
It was shared with us recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you look back on that, it has everything there.
Yeah. Is there a website that where your bylaws are listed or your meetings?
We don't have to
or-
actually do that because we are a private organization, but
You guys
it's
have that
something
or
we
no?
could actually, oh, you want to come up? Okay, I'm gonna
Just
go
state your
down.
name.
So my name is Kristen Criscelli. I'm at Six Stag Trail. I am the treasurer of the
Okay.
organization. And I'm also a CPA that deals 1000% with nonprofit organizations. We, as a 501c3 organization, we are not required to give out our bylaws. We can provide them upon request. They are not on our website, and we're still such a small organization that even our 990s are not, we still file a 990N. So we're still under that threshold. And we'll be under that threshold for 2023. 2024, we will not be. However, the grant process will eventually be listed on our website. So if you're looking for transparency,
Yeah.
that's the community, the board of ed, everybody will have full transparency on how to get access or understand how teachers can get the access to the funds.
Okay.
So they will be restricted grants too that they come through.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
On that. So I also had a 501(c)(3), and my question is that so the money doesn't have to be given out per grant. Is that how you chose to allocate the money?
So by our mission, we have to give within what our mission is to still be a public charity,
Mhm.
right? So our mission that is posted on our 1023 application says that we are a grant-making organization to give money to the teachers. So that's what we need to do to stay within our mission. With that being said, we can give money to the student council, we gave money, if there's a specific ask, or we decide as a board to give money to another cause within the district, we can do so.
Okay. So you can, but you're just
We
going
can, but
basically
right now,
grant-based.
we are deciding currently, based on with the school year budget coming out, now that we all see it, how much we can give based on the money that we just raised, based on the events that we have in our brains planned to give out in the future, plus our operating costs.
Yeah.
Hi. So just in our first year, we are going to be prioritizing the grants first. We can make decisions on, where the money would go to support different needs or extracurricular education activities for the district. But being the first year, we're going to establish our grant process, go through this process, so the grants will be the priority.
So I have a question for you. I'm sorry, before I lose this, because there's a lot processing. So I know that in regards to the Board of Education, anything donated to us has to be approved by the board, but I'm assuming that's not the case if you're.
You can take any donation.
No, not take a donation. So in other words, so anything that's donated to the Board of Education has to be board approved.
That does not happen in a public charity. You're a school district. School districts have different laws.
No. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm telling you, based upon our attorney's information, is whatever you donate, whatever you allocate to us has to be board approved. But if you choose to donate to another organization, I think it's important that the community knows the Board of Education has no say in what you guys do. Okay, so I think that's what some of the questions in the community are, that the community doesn't realize you don't report to us. You're not affiliated with us. You're your own entity that doesn't have to report to the people that are donating to the organization. You don't have to have a website. You don't have to say this is what we're doing with it.
Well, we don't have to have a website that's attached to the town or the school district.
Okay.
We do have a website. We do have social media, and anybody can message us on there and
Awesome.
join our mailing list, and one of us will get back to you.
Awesome.
But our mission is listed on the website,
Yes.
and it is to support the educational needs of this district. So
Awesome.
we're not.
Okay, because in the
allocating
past,
funds to
just because,
other-
in the
charities.
past, the Fairfield Education Foundation operated differently. So that's why I just wanted to understand which way you guys.
You mean?
What?
Before it went
Yes,
dormant?
correct.
Yeah,
before it went
so
dormant.
for the most part, funds that are dispersed from our organization would be going to the district and presumably
But they're going
approved by
through
this board.
grants.
They're going as.
At first, at the priority,
as a
that's
donation,
correct.
as a grant.
So I guess the question I have is, you said you donated to the Student Council. Is it Fairfield Student Council?
We have.
Yes,
Because
that was
the-
approved, that was approved at a prior meeting.
That was before the budget questions, we needed that club to run. So they graciously donated the salaries.
So the only question I would have is, as a board member, I'm just being made aware of that, and all donations have to be approved by the board.
No, it was approved.
It was approved at our meeting?
It was back in like September,
Yeah.
August or
Oh,
September.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a while
Oh, this
ago.
was the money that was already there when you guys started the
Yes.
foundation. It was money that was
No,
sitting there.
we
No,
had a
they did
fundraiser,
from the
yeah.
Okay, okay,
That
so it was
money
from your
already
fundraiser.
allocated for it.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah.
So this is back in September, not your recent fundraiser.
Right.
Perfect.
Correct. Our
Okay, great.
September fundraiser. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
John Fabricator, 5 Southampton. I just had a question for Ms. Moreno about the, I'm just going over everything. Page 10, line item O, when it comes to the relocation of the server room, could you just touch base on a little bit like what that entails? Because I feel like there's 7 companies here, one person put it out to bid, and how do we know that that's not the best price that we can get?
Well, we did an RFP prior to this, and then the board decided they wanted to bid it. So we ended up bidding it. The bid is probably 100 pages, and a lot of these companies don't have the time and they don't want to bid it. So that's why it was given to them. They picked it up, but they withdrew their application. This was the bidder that put in an RFP initially, and we have to go with the lowest responsible bidder, which is, if this one was the only one. Our attorney already has reviewed it, and they submitted everything compliance with the bid. So that's what was on the agenda for acceptance. In terms of the project, William could fill you in on how large-scale this project is going to be.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what does this really entail for like relocating of a server? Like when a lot of the I'm assuming it's going to be the internet, the storage of documents, emails. Is that like security, or are we talking like a full-on server-based system where you're housing everyone's data, where most of this stuff is in the cloud right now? So you're moving a whole data room. Like, what are you doing? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm definitely not prepared to speak, but it's more than just a server.
'Cause it's a lot of money,
That's
so-
it's our entire server room, our main distribution frame. It's in a closet right now that has no ventilation. It has to constantly be unlocked. It's in the main office. It's very noisy. It gets very hot. Yeah, it's constantly leaking. But included in that is a lot more than just moving the server. We need new network switches. We need new wiring. A lot of our wiring is very outdated. It does not, our access points don't connect at the right speeds. Things drop all the time. All of our cameras, access points, all the phones in the rooms, all that wiring has to be rerouted because it's going to be at a new location.
Okay, but as far as how it's done, couldn't this have been set off to like an outside server, which most people do anyway? Or does it have to be by law, like in the school system?
Most districts have server rooms in each of the buildings or main location.
Has it ever been looked into to go to the cloud and outsource it to like a
I mean,
AWS?
most of this is physical infrastructure, actual wiring, actual network
Yeah,
switches.
no, it's very
to-
expensive. So
Right.
usually it's more cost effective to actually farm that out and let other people do it. That's what I was wondering.
Well, again, this is the physical infrastructure in the building. We can't outsource physical infrastructure.
Just wondering, because it seemed like it was a lot of money, and I know that the aids are a big thing, so I was just looking at it and seeing,
By
I
the
would
way,
love to have
this-
seen other prices on here to like go off of, because it just seems
So
like a lot of money.
this is being funded through our capital reserve account. It's not funded through our general operating
That was
budget.
my
It's
next
where-
question, if
right.
it was, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Just a follow-up question around the server. The JCT Solutions, back in January of '23, this was also on the budget, on the minutes, and then I think it was removed. And the cost of it was $151,000. Is there something different that's happening now?
Yes.
That brings it up to 224,
Well,
like $73,000 difference?
first of all, it was bid. That's number one. And number two is that going back to our last admin, who was Mike Ludwig at the time, when William came on board to replace Mike, there was other things that he realized that were needed in the bid package, and that's what probably expanded the cost.
So the bid wasn't essentially apples to apples?
Correct.
There was an increase in services provided in the second bid?
Bid doc.
Okay.
Okay, so 73,000 difference.
In extras?
In extras.
And I'm sure in the cost of a year, whatever the inflation was,
I understand
yeah.
inflation, but when I saw
Yeah.
it was 73,000, I thought that's a little bit
Yeah.
more than inflation.
No, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments?
I just have one last question, just about some of the positions that were on the questions on the ballot. So Lauren had kind of started asking about, are there any teachers that were not hired? But there were other staff on there too, like, custodians and speech teachers, nurses, lunch aides. Have we filled all of those positions, every position that was on the ticket?
We've been trying to hire lunch aides. We put out the blast in the community, and we had a lot of interest, but then the process to actually work in a school system where you have to be fingerprinted, volunteers do as well. That's an issue, and then parents backed off. So they didn't fill all those positions. The OT assistant, we couldn't fill that position. The speech, we couldn't fill. Custodian, we did. The RNs, we did. I don't think I'm missing any other positions, am I?
Are we still trying to fill those
Of
positions?
course we are, yeah, absolutely. We're constantly trying to fill them.
So, but if they don't get filled at the end of this school year, then we have a gap year, and then that just goes to the budget for the following year.
25-26 school year.
Is there, I mean, obviously, if you're still trying to hire people, you know, is there anything that the community can do to try to help get people in these positions so that we're not using, I mean, we're essentially losing that budget for next year that many of us here.
If you know people in that field that are looking for a position, please have them apply. That's the extent of how the community
Are
can
they,
help.
are they listed somewhere where we can reference? Like the
They
job
should be on
openings?
our website,
District
under,
website?
yeah, under employment opportunities.
Okay. And then, you know, if you cannot find positions for that, I guess before June 1, when everyone technically gets their June 1 letter, can you, if you were to hire, I want to say this diplomatically, a OT person, could that person then be reallocated next year to maybe a special education aide, or how does that work? Kind of like how you're reallocating.
An OT, you mean an occupational therapist?
I'm just trying to figure out creative ways of how we can maybe
An occupational
use some of
therapist is
these
a
open
certificated
positions
staff.
Yeah,
to,
that's.
to fill the need that we have for the
Yeah.
aides in the classroom.
No. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chrissy Cefelli, 61 Deer Park Road. I just have a quick question. So I know you and our town council are two totally separate entities, but have you ever thought about coming together with them and having them analyze your budget? Because we're a very fiscally fit town.
So that's a great question, but the town operates underneath a different budgetary process than
know
we
they
do.
do.
So when I say that is, when they're above, and Joe, I don't know if you could jump in if you know how the structure is. I know a little bit about it, but not enough about it. When we reach our 2% or whatever our dollar amount is, that's it. We have to fall underneath it. The town does not.
I know they could raise taxes.
Well,
However,
they have other. They're 2.5%. And they have other ways of moving the money. Yeah, Joe, I don't know if you.
Listen, governmental process with that kind of budgeting and just accounting is specialized. So, and that's not my specialty. I'm up here, but that's not my specialty. What I can say is our fixed costs are much greater than their fixed costs. And what I mean by that is when you have a budget that every year 70 to 75% is just to take care of our people, they don't have that. Now, granted, what I'll sit here and say is, did the council over the last 20 years probably make better decisions? Sure. And they're probably, you know, I mean, it's the same group of people, so you can't even say that. We've had many changes up here.
we had some
Not a
people
lot
that
of-
were here for a little time. They were a little stagnant, okay?
Yeah, I'm new, so
Okay? They were a little
I'm new.
stagnant.
I'm trying not to be too negative towards anybody who was here in the past, but yeah, that's what I was kind of say. I saw you walking a little late, but what I said earlier was you can't have a compound positive if you don't make any decisions in the past. And we're making decisions now we should have made years ago.
Yes.
If they didn't do that, then that's why they're in a more sound position than we are. That's just the honest truth. That's all it is. This really isn't that hard. This part, not upsetting everybody and trying to make everybody happy, is the hard part. Just, we're in a
I
bad
understand I work in
situation.
a school district. So, also, I'm wondering when our LDTC, Miss Banarelli, is also going to get back to the classroom because she's been in preschool, from my understanding, because my son's IEP was almost up, and I had to email about it, that he was supposed to be reevaluated. So I was a little concerned that I hadn't been contacted, so I had to reach out to Ms. Cafone and ask for my consent. You guys are supposed to ask for my consent to reevaluate my son. And I was waiting, and I waited till April 10th. His IEP would have been out of compliance on April 18th. So I'm concerned that we're not, keeping our ducks in a row and monitoring things too. I'm also concerned because our teachers aren't happy. That makes me sad because my kids loved going to school here, and I'm sad because my teachers aren't happy. So it breaks my heart, and I understand you're in like a really tough spot. I do, because I understand the inner workings of a school. I get it. You get a kid who comes in with, major issues, and you have to send him out of district, and that comes out of your pocket. It's part of a free and appropriate education for all. I get it, but we have to start figuring out, like the gentleman said, for long-term effects. And that's why I was thinking maybe the town council, even if you don't have the same budgetary constraints, maybe they can help guide you just a little bit. I don't know. I'm just pulling at straws because, again, we need to come together as a community. These are our babies. They're the most important people to us. I know they're important to all of you. They're important to all of them. That's why they're here. So I really, really implore you to figure something out. And I know you guys will. I have faith in you. Okay? So please do that for us.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Anyone else? You have to. You have to. Yeah.
Sorry, I know Alexis Fabricator, 5 Southampton. I know everyone wants to go home. I don't know how often this meets. I don't know how often I'll get an opportunity. My child is starting kindergarten.
Just ask Frank. He'll fill you in.
I know there's a whole host of people that have a lot of trepidation about kindergarten, that are on a Facebook group, and everybody's talking, and the culture, of a town is really important. And since I've been in this town, everyone really loves to be here. And this is my first experience, and for the kids, it's their first experience with starting school. And I see some of the teachers here that I got to meet during the assessment, and it feels like there's excitement. And then I wonder, with this aid thing, it's such a big deal, and I'm wondering, one, like, is someone gonna, by June have an answer so that we don't go all summer with this trepidation of like, oh my God, is it gonna be a disaster when the school starts? There's gonna be too many teachers. Or is it something that, maybe, I don't know if we can ask the teachers, like, if they're like, we can't do this without the age, just to have a little bit better understanding of, the timeline and how long this is gonna, because behind the scenes, just so you know, in the community, there is a lot of these kindergarten moms, we're getting together, we're really excited, and then there's this kind of like, uncertainty and angst about this issue, and it feels like something that needs to be addressed immediately. So I guess maybe if you could just speak to that a little bit. If this is the last chance I get to say something, I'll be mad if I don't. And so I just want to bring some passion and,
We
let
do
you
have
know how
meetings
everyone
once a
feels.
month, so you're more than welcome to come next month
So
if you
next
want
month
as
I
well.
can come and bring up the same issue.
yeah.
Do I come until June?
Yeah, you can.
When is my last date to keep?
You can.
To keep pushing this.
You
know.
can, no problem. I wish I had an answer for you as to when this will be ironed out. I don't have that answer. I can tell you that we have been working on things, and we will continue to work on things. And if and when there is a change, that will be sent out. Obviously, staff members would be told first, and once they're told, the community will probably know anyway, because that's just the way it works. But of course, Dr. Tribuca will send something out. Okay?
Thanks for responding to my email. Thank you. I didn't know if
Thanks.
this was the last chance I got. I had to say something. My husband
Never
was like,
last chance.
please let people go home, but thank you.
Thank you.
No. With that, we're going to close the public comments, non-agenda items only. Next meeting, be it resolved that the next meeting will be held in person on May 22nd, 2024. Public work section beginning at 6 p.m., followed by executive session with public session resuming at approximately 7:30 p.m. at the Fairfield Municipal Building. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Aye.
You don't need to.